Hi Astha, how are you doing?
I'm good, Rajiv. Good to see you.
Absolutely good to see you. After the guest meet chat we had, finally we are able to get
Yes,
onto this particular call. We had to push it a little bit because of other reasons, but I'm glad that finally we could grab each other in front of the screen to do this. And I'm all excited to talk about a book written by an Indian author, so that makes it all the more personal and interesting for both of us
yes,
being proud Indians. So thank you for choosing that particular book. It's a known book. The moment I spill the name, everybody on the LinkedIn platform or in the HR fraternity or the CEO suite would know about the book. I read the book because the author has made a great impact through this book on the reading fraternity of India for sure. It's a simple, easy, free flow read, yet very, very insightful. And for a leadership facilitator like me and a coach, the skill is the fundamental survival skill for us. So I know how
absolutely,
important it is, and you would also.
absolutely.
Yeah, superb. So before we get started and talk on this particular book, and I've got your LinkedIn profile in front of me, let me have the honor of introducing you to the audience. So, good morning, good afternoon, a good evening to all of you, whichever part of the world you would be sitting while you would be listening to the guest of the day. All of you were part of Leaders and Library Season 1 that had 33 global guests coming and talking on 22 powerful books. Season 2, we have 35 to 40 leaders coming and talking on such exclusive, powerful books. And we have yet another guest for the day, Miss Astha Chaturvedi. She is a person who is awarded as one of the top young HR leaders in India. She is also somebody who has been awarded for one of the best leadership practices by ASOCHAM. She is a certified person in multiple spaces of capability building, whether you pick it as job profiling, BI, job analytics, multiple things, also a training coach, which is interesting. She has done pretty much a lot of hats she has worn under the umbrella of Ellen Woody, if I can say, diversity, inclusion, talent, leadership development, multiple spaces, OD interventions. And when I spoke to her first, and what was interesting is she connected expressing a desire to be part of this leaders and libraries, which only tells that how book lovers can come together so magically. And we thought we should definitely get together and talk on a very, very powerful book. Beyond all this, she is an avid reader and a book lover like me, so that makes us personally happy to have her on this event. Now, all of you would be wondering, where does she work? She works as an associate director and a program manager for Capgemini. And she comes with rock solid experience and been spending around 6 to 7 years with the organization, leading the leadership capability and development space for the organization. So it's such a pleasure to have you, Astha. Welcome on board.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. Really looking forward to the conversation today. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, as we jump into the book and talk about a couple of things that the author is talking, let me have the first question thrown at you. So, how did books happen in your life? How early was it? Were you a school going girl or a college going girl or an executive who entered the corporate world with a lot of aspirations to make an impact there? How did it happen?
In fact, all of it.
That's interesting. A combination of all three.
Yes, yes. So, in fact, as far as I remember, I have always been surrounded by books.
Mhm.
If I look back in my childhood, we lived across many cities, and one of the constant, which was always getting transferred with us was the set of books, a small library at home, and it was very diverse. So my mother was actually a literature teacher, and she was a marvelous orator. So we had those kind of books, and then which ranged from Munshi Premchand to Amrita Pritam to all of what you can actually think of in Hindi writing. And also, she was an avid orator of Ramcharitmanas. So we had a lot of
Wow.
lot of books around that. And then with my dad, who was a marketing and sales professional, so we had books from Karl Marx to autobiographies of Gayatri Devi,
My
and of course
goodness,
we had our own books of
that's
Panchatattva and
diverse.
Gandhar. Yes, so it was quite an interesting mix. And When I look back, actually, it was very interesting phase because if not at that age, I don't think I would have understood the kind of books we had access to. However, when I look back, I definitely see that what a treasure trove we were sitting on. And even if we could go through some pages there, some magazines, it was something always which stayed with me. And it continued throughout. Even when I came in college, it came to theater. I did professional theater in my college days. So I could actually see the power of, how a book being adapted into a screenplay and
Lovely.
that to being staged, seeing that how that can become such a powerful medium to bring change. And then of course as I entered management course, and then eventually as HR when I started, it just expanded. I think today when I look back,
Mhm.
the collection of books which I have ranges from autobiographies to the book which we are going to talk about today, and to
Super.
many other in fiction. And it's really a treasure.
So when are you going to take a picture of that bookshelf of yours and send it to me on WhatsApp so that I can figure out what are those books that I have not laid my hands on and go and pick them up?
I would
How early
today,
would you do that? Give me a promise on the show, then I'll start the show.
today.
Lovely. So you know what? As I'm listening to you, I'm only reminded of Abhimanyu born to Arjuna and Subhadra, and it happened from the womb. I think it happened from your mother's womb for you reading
Yes,
in books.
yes, absolutely.
Oh, lovely, man. So lovely. Beautiful, beautiful. So let's expand this a little bit. So much of reading across the years, and what was interesting is the variety of books that you spoke about, from literature to biographies, autobiographies, and leadership books. How have you seen books play a very significant role in expanding you as an individual? I mean, you have got amplified over the years as a different person. How did it create that version 2, version 3, version 4 of Astha as a human being?
It's a very interesting question. Um, when I look back, actually, Rajiv, I see that this is not a new thing. We always say that we can live many lives through books, right?
Hmm, hmm.
You can live through many experiences of people, what they
Yeah.
have gone through, and even in fiction, because I do enjoy reading that also.
True.
um, if I look back and even through in the journey through years, I definitely see that personally have found a lot of inspiration. So the
Mhm.
books which I generally pick, uh, of course, 25% of that is what I would maybe understand from my friends or have
Hmm.
been recommended by someone, but 75% of them are the ones which really inspire me, which
Hmm.
has something where people have um, where people have come up with certain ideas, have risen through challenges. uh,
Uh,
I actually find for inspiration in those books.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And of course, with the profession I am in, that of course feeds my career, my soul
Absolutely,
energy.
absolutely.
So it becomes a win-win situation. And
Yes.
when I look back, even through the years, I would actually tell you that when I was interning with an investment bank during my MBA time, the project which I was given was job evaluation for a set of investment bankers. And my job was to go and basically ask them, what do you do?
Hmm.
Right? And I have understood it, very early on that these decks and templates would only help me to some extent. I
Hmm.
really need to build a very powerful story when I'm reaching out to them,
Beautiful.
that they are able to understand the why,
Hmm.
why they should give that time to an intern. And it continued. Even when I started, I had a very interesting mix of people with me. I
Mm-hmm.
had Japanese bosses,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was being put onto a project which dealt with union agreement.
Hmm.
And I had a set of people. I had set of people who, where I was not even able to understand the language which they spoke. Specifically at that point in time, I did not understand Marathi. There were many people coming from south of India.
Mm.
I was not aware of the language. And on one hand, I have Japanese, where I'm actually, required to speak in a language which is so simple, yet I don't, lose on the actual impact. And again, that was early in the career. I have understood that, I have to make it a point that people
Mm.
are able to relate. They are able to take away key messages from what we are trying to say,
Mm.
and most importantly, they have to be my own and most credible. And that stayed with me, and that continued actually over the time, when I was in consulting assignments and then into transformation and OD space, and today in a global role again. Many countries may not have so much comfort with English as a language.
Mm. Mm.
The key is to make it simple, and at the same time, when we say that, moti baat, like we say in Mumbai,
Yeah, yeah,
what's the moti baat, come to the point. Sometimes, getting onto there, we lose the essence of it. So
yeah.
that has always stayed with me, and that's where I have lived through many experiences of people who I worked with them, leaders, many of them, in fact, I have seen were great, great storytellers.
Fantastic.
So it has stayed with me that it's going to be a very critical skill. So better we learn it fast.
What a wisdom that you have had over journey. And getting it so early on is so useful because I always feel that once you get into this habit of understanding the importance of the fact that it's all about stories end of the day, and then you get onto that habit of reading books, your life becomes far more purposeful,
Yes.
and you understand that it's so valuable for yourself, right? I think it's a great learning. So I'm going to get started with this, right? Uh, so many books that you have read across, and many of them have inspired you in multiple ways and formats. So, what made you pick this book of the day for the talk today? Stories at Work by Indraneel. It's such a lovely book. And guys, all young guys here listening to Astha today, you should go pick up this book written by Indraneel Chakraborty. It's a fabulous book. And on LinkedIn, on his page, you'll see a lot of conversation that he has had with CEOs, CHROs, and people from the world of business who made it big, and shared those stories for most of us to get inspired by. It's a great work by Indraneel, and this book is a not a very thick one. It's an interesting read. It's got techniques, tools that you can use to build a great platform for visibility and credibility for yourself. So go pick it up after this talk with Astha. So yes, Astha, why this book?
So one is that as we started, Rajiv, I wanted to, and have been watching some of your videos already. So one was that I wanted to pick something very simple,
Hmm,
yet something which is very useful for people, because
sure.
I know there is information download everywhere,
Yeah.
right? So I wanted to speak about something which really gives them and encourages them to go for this book.
Hmm,
Second is that, as I said, that when I picked this book almost 2 years back, it has been a game changer. Throughout different phases of work which I have done, I have, I think, around 4 or 5 times I have gone to this book again to
hmm,
understand and see if I'm doing this right.
lovely.
Because I never believed that storytelling is a science. I was made to believe after reading this book that, if I practice it right, I can actually get there someday, and it's still work in
Absolutely.
progress.
Absolutely.
And most importantly, it also told me what not to do.
Hmm.
So I had picked many things over time, my own way of storytelling, as they say, my own version. And Indraneel actually, very simply says what you don't have to do to be a
Yeah.
right storyteller, or a good storyteller.
Hmm.
And most importantly, if you read through the book, and you have read it already, he himself doesn't talk about any concept without a story.
Yeah.
So it is, this book in itself is a huge repertoire of many good stories, which I
Absolutely.
found very interesting, and I
Absolutely.
thought people should know about it.
Thank you so much for choosing this, because this book has not been chosen by any other leader across both the seasons, and you are the first one to pick this. That makes it all the more special and all the more exclusive. I'm calling this because there have been some books which were chosen by a couple of leaders and they had different context to the same book. But when it is exclusive, it makes it all the more interesting. So thank you so much. You chose another book initially, then you went on to choose this book. So I was very excited that you landed with this book finally. Indranil, that's a call out to you. Both of us are excited to talk on this book, and we're going to touch upon a couple of things that you have very powerfully spoken on this book. And Astha, if you have acknowledged the contribution of this book to you in your career with Indranil, fabulous. If not, you should go ahead and do that.
Yes, I would definitely.
Please do that. The lovely man. I've not met him personally, but I can understand he'll really appreciate the value that book is bringing to your life. So go ahead and write to him on LinkedIn. All right,
Definitely.
after the call. Okay, let's delve into the book. My first question that comes to you is all of us have enough stories. We love to talk about stories. बचपन से कहानी सुनते हैं, दादी माँ के पास लेटते लेटते कहानी सुनते हैं, तब नींद आ जाता था. That's how
Yes.
stories
Yes.
started off. How do you think should a leader start working on building a story bank? What could be the step one, step two, step three kind of stuff?
So, see, one is that we have to really believe that we will not be born with stories. So there won't be day one where I see that okay, I have stories to back each and everything what I want to say. So it's always work in progress. However, the good news is that when we read through books, we talk to people around. There are so many stories around, and with the experience and reading which we are doing, that they become post-its in our brain, right?
Correct.
So it will always come in play. We will take stories from there. And of course, around 25% of them will come from our own set of stories which we mindfully put in. So, if I refer to the book, what Indranil says, he mentions that to start with, start identifying certain stories. And to begin with, most importantly, as a leader, he gives a very simple three way process that first of all you write certain words with which you would want to identify yourself with. How should people recognize Astha? And then you identify those situations in your life which have been most powerful, which you have been most proud of, or maybe some challenges which you have seen. And then start trying to see where these adjectives which you had thought about yourself map with these stories and how you have done in life.
Okay.
And that becomes basically a connection story, as he calls it. Where when you are talking about those specific points, people should be able to relate to those 4 or 5 things which you want to talk about. And then of course there are other steps into that you have to speak to people, vet it, make it concise, cut the extra fat of it. So that's the starting step for anyone to get onto this journey of storytelling. And of course over a period of time, as we practice it better, I'm sure we'll get there someday.
Absolutely. I think as I was reading this, what struck me is all of us are a bundle of stories, right? Just that we don't sit and realize that there are so much. We look around. I've got so many stories around me. If I can just consciously tell my head that okay, this happened today, there's a story. This happened today, there's a story. This delay on this particular call today of 15 minutes because of an IT issue in my office is a story,
The story.
right? So if just process your head and train yourself to look at an incident not just as an incident but a culmination of a couple of things happening around, and hence the story emerges. You have so much, like that magician, you can just keep getting the rabbit off the hat, right? Story after story after story.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And as he also says here that stories do not need a vanity. They are
Yeah,
present everywhere.
absolutely.
You can get it from the simplest of people around you. So it's just about understanding and seeing, what and how it basically fills into your messages and what you
Very
want to
true,
speak.
very true, very true. In fact, today morning I was having my breakfast in one of the thelas outside. There's a lovely guy who makes dosas in the morning, so I normally have my breakfast there after parking my car outside my office. So we're having a chat while having the dosa, and this man was talking about the corona, etc. So as he was saying, sir, the business was low, and 2020 was a washout kind of a thing for us. So we got into some oil manufacture, all this stuff. But again, we have put this shop back. His father comes and says, "But son, and sir, addressing me also, I don't think we should really worry about this, sir, because so many people did not stay to see 2021. We are alive to see 2021." That's a story for me.
Yes, yes.
Super. Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much. So let's move this a little deeper. Tell us how do you use certain techniques? And if you could give this as tips to the young leaders on how could you use stories to build rapport and
Mhm.
credibility. And I think for me, these are the two keywords that are the outcome of a powerful storyteller. Message हो जाता है, then लोग action लेते हैं, influence, all that MBA ज्ञान all of us know. But the point is, wow, he or she spoke so well. I was just hooked on to that 10 minutes of talk by him or her. So how do you do that? What are few techniques? Because as leaders, we need to talk to stakeholders, we need to talk to our teams, we have customers, we have the environment around us. Any tips that you would love to tell the young leaders?
So, to begin with, Raji, one is that, and I think that's to do with stories. You know, that the powerful tool of stories is to allow each one of us find a common ground.
Hmm.
To find a sense of identity,
Hmm.
to be able to create a shared common space.
Lovely.
And when you look at that, of course, it has to be invisible, as I said. Uh,
Hmm.
I can't really come and, um, talk about a story
Hmm.
and expect people to listen.
Hmm.
As it is said that story basically is a fact, which
Hmm.
is put into context,
Hmm.
and that's rounded through the emotions,
Hmm.
right? So it cannot be on the face.
Cannot be.
That's one. Second is that we have to keep it simple, which means that um, many times we have a habit of creating communication,
Hmm.
or any key message which is very complex to understand.
Okay.
And that's where the structure comes in.
Hmm.
Why people should listen to you.
Hmm.
Where is the shared common ground,
Hmm.
where people can connect with you on that story.
Right.
Most importantly, how are you making people feel when they are hearing that story? Are they
Hmm.
able to relate and understand and even feel that there is some kind of dialogue happening?
Hmm.
Right, that's the powerful story where you actually transport them to another world.
Right.
So if I look at specific, ways where you can develop rapport and credibility, so one is that you have to be transparent.
Hmm.
The story should be consistent, which means that even as a leader, you use, verbal and written communication, and you have
Hmm.
to understand that these are two different mediums.
Hmm.
Stories and the key messages cannot be same and cannot be
Hmm.
put in the same way,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So um, when you're putting it, you have to be observant of the medium you are using. Second, as I said, you have to find the common ground. You have to find simple language to make it understand to people. And most importantly, it has to be something where, you do not blow your own trumpet.
Ah,
Right? So it's about me sharing a story about myself, without uh, making it too much on the face that people are ticked off because of that. So what one can do is that they can create stories around situations. They can
hmm.
create characters and situations,
Hmm.
and then share how, as a human, I helped. What was my role in that? And
Hmm.
that's where people will be able to relate certain instances and certain traits about you, which makes you a powerful story in itself.
Right.
So
Right.
those are specific things, and the most important is that you should not borrow it from anyone. It has to be original, and if it is not, please tell.
Very, very powerful one, because you could eventually get caught and have a tremendous embarrassment in
Yes,
any
yes.
platform. So better be cautious that it's a true story. Absolutely, very right, very right. Super. So I have a thought before I go to the next one.
Yes.
It just came in my head, and I've been doing storytelling for many years, but still, let me ask this from you. So you have a message and you have a story. I always keep thinking, which is the subsect of what? Is the message a subsect of the story, or is the story a subsect of the message?
So, message is the story. Message is the subset of story.
Okay.
And most importantly, because when we are picking a story, or when we
Hmm.
are framing that whole context,
Hmm.
it also needs to ensure, and as I said, you have to remember why should
Hmm.
people listen to you,
Hmm.
what you are leaving them with. And that's where, in fact, I was listening to one interview, of Zoya Akhtar
Hmm.
yesterday in one
Hmm.
of the events, where she said that a story is like a gift
Hmm.
which I'm giving to people,
Hmm.
right? And as they say, you don't gift something to someone which you do not use, which
Uh,
means that, so she was sharing that I actually pick stories which inspire me, which I am really enjoying listening
Lovely,
to.
lovely.
And that's where, we have to find a common ground
Hmm.
depending on the context of people, what basically, where you can find that common ground. And I'd
Hmm.
like to give an example here, which again is mentioned in the book,
Hmm.
of Indra Nui. And while she was heading PepsiCo,
Hmm.
she was invited for one of the new joinee dinners.
Hmm.
And that was the time when she was sharing her story, that the time when she was made president of PepsiCo, the
Hmm.
day when she had gone back to her home,
Hmm.
her mother was waiting on stairs, and she asked her to get milk because
Hmm.
milk was over. And she said that, there are so many people at home, and why were you waiting for me to come here? And I have a good news to share. And she said that good news can wait, first go and get the milk because it's not there, for morning. And when she came back and she shared the news, and she was telling her mom that I'm becoming the president of PepsiCo, and you are asking me to get milk. She said that, you would however big and influential and powerful you become, that's all outside, but when you get inside home, you are one amongst us.
How lovely.
When she shared that story, that was the time when she created a common ground with new joinees who have just started to get the ropes of their career. If she would have shared that, I'm sitting in a boardroom discussion, and
Yeah.
we are working on this strategy for this market, it would not have been so much relatable.
Hmm.
So, and there are many instances in the book which talks about how powerful storytelling
Very
can
true.
actually enable a leader to build an expressway into someone's mind.
That's a very nice way of saying it. Beautiful.
Yes,
Thank you so much. It clearly says that the core is the message, but the larger piece is the story. So it obviously subsect of the larger story.
yes.
Lovely one. So let's move to the next one. Uh, Leaders, as part of a regular job, we have the strategy presentation, talks, town hall meets, and big ones. Right? I have seen leaders fail and fail miserably. I mean, I've had death by PowerPoints. I've had death by words and words just flowing out. How does somebody work on this? Why do they struggle? What do they not do, Astha, that they should do?
Yes, so I would actually look at some of my notes here.
Please, please.
And there are some very good points which actually Indranil had suggested. So one is definitely anti-story.
Hmm.
So not understanding the anti-story. So anti-story is any um, alternative reality. So
Mm,
when I'm talking about a key message, we'll always have people around who do not
mm,
have any malicious intention.
mm,
However, basis their experience,
mm.
what they have seen in life or heard from people, they have a very contradictory view to your message.
Right.
So one is that as a leader, how many times you are able to understand and proactively identify it
Mm.
and tweak your message around that,
Okay.
right? That's one. Second is that you it's a pull strategy, right? So storytelling in itself is a pull strategy, but you have to be very very sure that it doesn't have abstraction of language. And again, I'll cite one example from the book where he quotes Elon Musk that in Tesla he has mentioned that anything that requires explanation inhibits communication, right? So keep it simple, and trust me, that's the toughest job. And he also talks about this concept of GFI, gunning fog index, which is basically the readability test of
Mm,
of English. So
mm.
he mentions that Steve Jobs, all of his product launches and his speeches have been, of course, everyone knows about it. And he says that on GFI index, it is rated to be 5.5 as compared to Bill Gates, which is 10.7, which clearly says that why we like listening to Steve Jobs, because it's very simple. There
Yeah.
are no jargons, there are no words which people cannot understand. So second is definitely the abstraction of language. Third is definitely that how do we look at stories. So there are four types of situations which we come across. One is of course simple issue which has a cause and effect
Right.
situation. Then there would be one which are little complicated, which means that there are some factors which are intertwining,
Mm, mm,
which needs more analysis,
mm.
but there is no sense required there.
Yeah.
Then the chaotic space,
Mm.
where we have many moving pieces around, and so there is a lot of correlation which is required to be made there,
Correct.
and a lot of analysis to be done. And then there is fourth one, which is primarily complex, which involves people,
Mm.
right? So the book also talks about that whenever these complex situations would be, and I think with the times we are in, they are only going to rise from here.
Correct.
Um, and when people get involved, they actually need a sense,
Mm.
right? Sense in the form where we are able to recognize patterns. They
Okay.
are not very simple to identify.
Mm.
And that's where the third point will come, that how leaders can actually look at these four types of situations and use this powerful tool of storytelling,
Mm.
especially in the complex situations which involves people.
Mm.
Storytelling is the best tool you can use.
Very true. Very true. Very true. So I think the one reason why some of the leaders miss out and their talk becomes a tough experience for the audience is the element that you spoke about, which I like the anti-story bit very, very powerful.
Hmm.
If only we can get that anti-story preparation before getting on to the floor and talking, I think you'll be able to manage anybody who's sitting as an audience in front of you. I think very powerful tip by Indranil there. Uh, it just tells us that, as you rightly said before starting, it's a science. It's definitely a science. You can just sit and prepare and then go and do it. You are the only person who knows that there is so much of science and preparation behind it, but the audience will feel it like flow of
Yeah.
water and wow, stories coming out, and you know the amount of work that's gone behind 6 or 7 A4 pages would have been scribbled through to make that 15 minutes of talk, isn't it?
Yes.
Absolutely. And thank you for reminding Steve Jobs because he's one of my all-time favorites, and his first iPhone launch presentation is still one of the top best presentations ever on this planet. I don't think anybody can
Understand.
beat that.
Yes.
I don't know if you have done that, but go and figure out if you do actually a calculation between the gap of, so the image comes and then he speaks. Technically, they have measured it that there is no time lag between the words coming out and the image coming there. That's the precision. And that book called Steve Jobs, written by Walter Isaacson, which is a 800 900 pages book that I read almost 10 years back. He apparently practiced for 13 or 14 days with Steve Wozniak for that particular launch. He said, every day, now I'm going to do it, listen to me. And Steve Wozniak goes on record saying, Tera din this fellow mera dimag paka hai. And I had no choice but to listen to
Yes.
him. And look at the delivery. It just changed the entire perception of product launches.
Hmm.
From a graph and text and all that stuff, it was just one word, one image, one word, and then talking stories and stories. And today, Tim Cook just follows that blindly as a
Yes.
style.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Super, super. Thank you so much. I'm just loving this conversation. Let's understand the next one, which is very interesting for me, right? As leaders, we work with human beings, and our job is to primarily get work done through people. So the focus is always on people, and output is obviously a task completion or a result achievement, etc. And human beings are complex. Indrani very beautifully says that it's important for leaders to understand the complex human issues. Why do you think, Astha, this is so important? How do you relate to this as an HR leader?
So one is that, when especially as HR, today in the situations we are in,
Hmm.
and with the kind of diversity
Ah.
we see today, um, the most important tool today is to ensure that people are able to believe in the context. They are
Hmm.
able to understand, what this is going to get to them.
Hmm.
Uh, why they should believe someone
Hmm.
uh, just because they are leaders, just because they're HR, or maybe someone in the transformation team is putting it there.
Hmm.
They need to understand how it is going to impact them
Hmm.
overall.
Hmm.
And then with that, there are so many moving pieces. Uh, if there is any change happening, so today when we announce um, a policy on domestic violence,
Hmm.
uh, when we announce, or when we would announce eventually, uh, how we will start the new normal.
Hmm.
uh, when we talk about situations where we are extending support to working mothers who are managing childcare at home.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, these are very, very real issues,
Very true.
right? And that's where, if one is not aware
Hmm.
of the science behind how these messages need to be put, what kind
Beautifully
of
said.
changes it will get, we would actually become reckless.
Hmm.
And we are talking about so much of well-being, empathetic leadership.
Hmm.
But most important is also that we are also living in a very paradoxical situation,
Very true.
right? We are talking people that you need to be empathetic, but at the same time courageous,
Yeah.
right? We are telling, so it's a very, very contradictory thought,
Hmm.
and one never know what people will get out of that message until and unless you are really consistent with each and every communication, with each and every word which you put out there,
Right.
people to understand one key message which is consistent,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
right? So of course, from here I definitely see that this is going to be one skill, this is going to be one powerful tool, which
Absolutely.
I don't think will ever be replaced by AI.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. I don't think so. It can.
Yes.
Absolutely.
because this connects humans, this connects
Yeah,
them to share a common ground, and it involves people to feel uh, and bring change. And stories do have the powerful element. They have that magnitude where it can actually bring change.
very
And
true, very
that's
true.
where you are seeing that it's not about just stories in at work or maybe in the work setup, but actually you actually see that with books, with cinema,
Hmm.
with different types of modes today of storytelling, how much impact they can create on society overall.
Very true, very true. If only all leaders can pick this skill as a fundamental skill, I think it become very easy for them to lead teams, lead organizations, lead customers.
Yes,
There is
yes.
so much, but I'm just little sad as we're talking that not many leaders do that. And and I can tell you because I'm a consultant and work with a lot of organizations, when you talk about something called AI, you talk about something called business analytics. I have people just thronging into the classroom. I say I'm going to run a session on storytelling and the power of influencing human beings. Yeah, ये सब क्या सीखना है?
Hmm.
It's a sad reality. They don't realize that this is a far more important and a necessary skill. I'm not undermining analytics as a subject, if not more, but equally this is also important.
Of course, and see again with analytics, it's a very very powerful medium,
Yeah,
and it adds up to the story. If
absolutely.
I just go today and talk to people that this is the bell curve, for example, or this is how your succession pipeline is looking like. Um, to begin with, I need to bring them to a common ground first.
And stories help doing that.
Yes. So where do I start?
Yeah,
They would only buy when they believe that this is a problem in itself.
very true, very true.
How do I tell them that it's a
Yeah,
problem?
which means
So it's
analytics also can be presented effectively or will go through only through the medium of a story.
yes, absolutely. So
Yeah,
it basically makes it very very robust, and it brings a lot of credibility to your
absolutely,
story,
absolutely.
because that's not just backed on intuition. It's backed by data. It's backed by, again, a science.
Yeah, and the
So
real characters, real situations, which
yes,
every member of the audience can relate with.
yes,
Lovely, lovely. And as he says, listening becomes one fundamental skill in the hands of leaders to understand these complex human issues, right? Very powerful, very, very powerful. So, as we're talking about this, he also says that leaders need to build an organization which storytells, or a storytelling organization, as he puts it. How do you see that? Isn't it too big an ask, or do you think it's still a realistic possibility?
it's a realistic possibility, and that's where we started. That no, I don't see that many people around. In fact, the leaders whom I hear, and even in the extended ecosystem, people whom I see, are very good storytellers. I don't think they were born with that skill. It's just about awareness, and it's about that education to understand how you can do it right.
Hmm.
um, Having said that, to bring that sustainability when it comes to storytelling as a skill in the organization, of course it has to come from top.
Right.
One day suddenly I cannot start thinking that this is important. But having said that, in our own smaller realms in which we operate, we don't need to become a leader per se to
Correct.
pick storytelling, because this is something which is so relevant,
Hmm.
is required by anybody and everybody.
Hmm.
And most importantly, when you look at that kind of cultural shift,
Hmm.
it has to again come from stories.
Absolutely.
I'm actually thinking that how many times I have used word stories in the conversation today.
Yeah,
Uh,
the conversation is all about stories at work.
yes.
Very
So
true.
having said that, it has to start, with a significant investment and promise
Yeah.
that this really is a skill which is required. And if I look around, I definitely see that there is a lot of investment and thought in putting this right.
Mm.
I definitely see even from the capability standpoint, and when today, even in my um, work, when I speak to leaders, most of them are considering storytelling as one of the powerful tools to develop,
Very true. Very true.
and irrespective of which roles they are coming from, they definitely see this to be a very, very powerful medium.
Good
Uh,
news.
so definitely that, it's a good news that people acknowledge that this is important. People acknowledge that they have to, if they need to inspire people, if they want to see people to work with them and for them, and of course take the partnerships to the next level, it
Yeah.
would require that they connect and they feel,
Very true.
and
Very
that
true.
can only happen through stories,
Very true.
through
In
credible,
fact,
transparent stories.
absolutely. In fact, one great learning I've had, and because I believe fundamentally in the power of storytelling, and my profession being this, as an organization, after establishing leadership elements, I do not have a case study document at all. Any client says, "Can you give me a case study?" I say, "Sorry, I can't give you that. I can tell you the story behind what happened and what did we do there as a partner."
Hmm.
They say, "No, send us a writer." No, I don't have a writer. You give me 2 minutes to listen to what I'm saying and understand the depth of it, because it's all about what's my job. My job is not just to design a learning and development workshop. That's a transactional word. It's about building human capital. It's about enabling people to deliver and become better at what they are doing. That's a solid purpose that we are driving, isn't it? So there is so much of human story involved. So when they case studies, I said, don't ask me case studies. Let's talk about stories. So I can completely relate to what you're saying, and I can completely relate to what Indraneel is, promoting, talking
Yes.
about so much on this book. Beautiful, beautiful. That was such a lovely, lovely conversation, Astha. I can just go on and talk about this book so much, but the format allows us to come to the end of the conversation. That was a beautiful narration from your side. I'm sure Indran will be very happy listening to this. Let me ask you the last question. With all that experience that you have garnered over the years, and now that you manage a global talent, which is a very significant role, and for me, managing global talent is a mighty powerful role. I just use it for a lack of another word, because your job is to help people to become the version 2, version 3, the better version of themselves. That's the larger purpose, isn't it? बाकी designation kursi is a incidental है. So with all that experience you have garnered, what could be two powerful advices to the young leaders who are on their own journey of leadership?
To begin with, I would consider myself young.
So a young leader to a young leader, go on.
uh, yes, so, one is definitely that, storytelling is more about experience, it's not a performance.
Hmm.
So you really need to work on how would you make people feel?
Hmm.
What will be the why, which will be taken by them? It's not a performance,
Hmm.
so you just don't go and perform in there. It's very important because I have seen many instances where storytelling actually becomes very caricaturish,
Beautiful.
and they don't seem real. They don't connect with audience. So you don't need to be a good actor for it. You just need to find a very authentic, powerful, and real story to back up your message.
True.
And again, if it is not yours, please give the credits to people. That's one. And second is that, while we test drive our connection stories with people around to find the most powerful one and the best version of it,
Hmm.
we also need to identify that there is no vanity when it comes to stories.
Hmm.
It can be found anywhere in the simplest of situations with simplest of people around.
Very true.
So, when people today look at this video, they don't need to feel worried that, oh, how do I start? For them, it's very
Beautifully
simple.
said. Absolutely.
Start with the basics and with the people around. Um, when I look back, and especially, being brought up in India, you actually see many, many flavors of what people's lives could be. And I've got the opportunity to see beyond India, to connect with those people
Yeah,
um, I see that there are so many interact with people.
sure.
So it doesn't need any extraordinary effort. It's very simple.
Super. Thank you so much for putting it so easy and making it workable for the audience. So if an Astha or an Aji or anybody can do wonders with stories and leverage the power of stories, I think anybody listening to this as audience can do it.
I'm
I
sure.
think picking the book would be the first tool
Yes.
that will help them to start on their journey of becoming a powerful storyteller. So it was
In
a
fact,
lot.
I should mention it here. I spoke to Indranil almost 2 years back for some engagement, and that was the time. I was very very keen to pick this book up, and from where it started. I haven't attended any of his workshops, but I've heard a lot about them from people around. And when I look at this book itself, it's such a powerful
Yes,
lesson in itself to read. So,
absolutely,
first of
absolutely,
all, and a call out to Indranil to write such an exceptional.
absolutely. Completely agree to that. It was such a lovely, lovely conversation. Time just went by. Thank you so much for coming and doing this, Astha. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and I hope you had a good time as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rajiv. Thank you.
Pleasure, pleasure. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes, and I'll share the picture with you of my
Please
book.
do that. Please do that. And write to Indranil on LinkedIn.
I would. I
Yeah.
would.
Bye bye. You have a lovely evening ahead. See you.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.